Recording is started.
All right, thanks. All right, hey, thanks everybody. This is Dave Thomas with Bales. I'm Vice President of Sales and Marketing and wanted to thank you for attending today's Informational Friday presentation. Today's topic is Transition Management Integration with Symmetry for State W-4 Forms. Today's presenters will be Liz Wilkerson, Kellie Gilbert, and Nikki Kimball. Before we get started, I want to take a minute and just give you a quick overview of the Bales organization if you're not familiar with us. We've been in the Infor ecosystem for over 26 years. We're entirely Infor focused. We absolutely do nothing but Infor implementations, upgrades, and managed services. We support all aspects of the technology, including the S3, Landmark, and Cloud Suite products, including HR, payroll, finance, and supply chain. In fact, we've been recognized and given partnering awards in 8 out of the last 10 years. Our consulting team brings 15 plus years of consulting experience on average in the space with the equivalent in professional services. Some were former benefits managers, compensation managers, directors of supply chain, and controllers, along with technical folks that have worked with other organizations. We had some real exciting news this year. Earlier in the year, Bales became part of Nordic. Nordic's an industry-leading healthcare consulting firm. Will operate as a wholly owned subsidiary and continue to be led by Jamie Bales. Nordic will provide us with resources to fund our growth, expand our business, and support our customers more effectively. For healthcare customers, it allows us to bring together the Nordic capabilities in the EHR space, focused on Epic and Cerner, into a more holistic solution, including specific expertise in EHR and EHR and ERP integration. The combination will offer a best practices model to reduce implementation risks, leveraging the data from both systems, and drive insights and outcomes. With that, I'll kick it over to Liz, Kellie, and Nikki. And well, again, thank you for joining.
Thank you, Dave. This is Liz Wilkerson. I am an HCM solution consultant here at Bales. And I do want to recognize that Jana Hartsock is also on the phone. She's a colleague of mine that will be hopefully interjecting in this presentation with me because she also has implemented Symmetry at one of her clients recently. So let's get started. Also, if you have a question, please feel free to put it into the chat, and I think Nikki is going to be monitoring that. And if there are any questions, Nikki, feel free to stop me as we go along.
Will do. Thanks, Liz.
Okay, thanks. So the Symmetry Overview. So Symmetry is a third-party vendor that integrates with transition management for the federal and state W-4 tax forms, and also for employee self-service. So not only can your candidates get it through the onboarding process, but they also can do it on an ongoing basis through employee self-service. It allows for different tax forms to be presented based on the employee's live and work state. And Symmetry uses Talent Science, which is the post-back receiver or the pass-through, basically, to bring that information back from Symmetry into Infor. I can tell you that since Wednesday of this week, Infor has put out a product announcement that for multi-tenant clients, they will be using ION APIs in order to do that pass-through. Otherwise, if you are on single tenant or on-premise, you would still need to use Talent Science. One thing I do want to mention, I did implement this at one of our clients, and the first thing they asked was, well, we didn't purchase Talent Science. You do not have to have Talent Science purchased in order to do this. This is something that Infor actually provides if you're using Symmetry. So as I noted previously, this is an optional feature that can be used in transition management and employee self-service to provide federal and state online forms to the candidates and employees. Next, Nikki. So to configure Symmetry in transition management, you would go to transition management, go to setup, and then configurations. And then as you can see under the configurations, there's an enable state tax forms. You would check that. And once you check that, then a configure icon comes up. Next slide, Nikki. So as you can see, the configure icon is there. You would click onto that. Once you click onto that link, it brings up the information that you would need to fill in for the configure Symmetry interface. So once you get to this, hopefully you have already gotten with Enforce Services, because they do have to supply you with the postback username and password, and also the Talent Science postback target location for each product line that you have. So if you have a production, a test, or a train, you would have to have one for each one of those. All U.S. Organizations, the U.S. password and username are listed there, and every client uses that. So for instance, the username would be N4US, and the password, the 722MLQ little letter Z. Go ahead, and Nikki. So in order to get this set up for employee self-service, you would have to go into your admin setup structure, your organizations, go into organization country configurable fields, and then the country, of course, US, and then select the Symmetry tax form. You would do the check mark, and then you would do the configure, almost like you did in transition management. The only difference is when you do the configure, sorry, Nikki, when you do the configure here, it will automatically populate what you had already put in transition management under that configuration for the postback receiver information. Okay. So you would also need to, if you are using GHR Payroll, you would need to set up your tax authorities over in GHR Payroll. And you would go in under the tax authorities. So you would do admin, setup, payroll, go into the deduction structure. I'm sorry. Did someone have a question? Okay. And then go into your tax authorities, select a tax authority, and then create the button. So you will, if you have Symmetry enabled, you will see a tab that says Symmetry tax forms, and you would need to fill out those Symmetry tax forms. Now, N4 has put in delivered content in order for that to be populated per those tax authorities. So you would need to run that delivered content in order to get that. Next, Nikki. This is just an example of the Symmetry form IDs that get populated for each one of the states, along with the federal, if you're using the federal tax form. Okay. So once you have that set up, then you can go back to transition management, and you can do your configuration in transition management for your employee state W-4 form. So this is just going in and kind of showing you on the screenshot setting up your task. And you can call your task whatever you would like. In this case, this client called it an EMP state W-4 form. Okay. You would also need to attach the custom groups that go to this task. So there are 2 custom groups that are delivered. They are called the home state tax eligibility and the work state tax eligibility. And those list all of the different home and state tax, or home and work state tax eligibilities of those states that actually do not have taxes taken out. So anybody that basically, you know, is in that group would be those that basically would have taxes taken out. That makes sense? I hope I said that right. Okay, so then you would need to add the task to the transition management program, which would be your onboarding program. Once this is added, then you could actually go in and look at your transition management program. So you would add the task here, and then next, Nikki. And then you can select the display order and create the task. So if you see the little arrow down at the bottom, you see where we have the employee form W-4. So you may want to have your state tax form underneath that, so it comes up directly underneath the employee form W-4, which is your federal form. Next, Nikki. So you select the task from the task list to add to the program and click OK. and then the task is added to the program. So as you can see, it's the onboarding program for onboarding activities. It's under the employee form W-4, which is the federal form, and then you have your employee state tax form under that. Next. So if you want to check to see if your task was added to the program, you can actually go into resources, and then select a resource. And then under the transition program panel, you can actually create a transition program for that resource. So you add the transition program. In this case, I added it to Snickers Wilkerson, which is my dog, and he is a consultant. And then you would just hit submit. Once you do that, you will be able to see that the state W-4 form has been added to that onboarding program for that employee. Okay, next. Of course, once you do that, you will want to go in once you validate it and delete that program, because this was just testing to make sure that you could see the program or the actual task added to that program. Next. And as you can see now, the program is empty once you did the delete. Okay. So GHR payroll versus HRM payroll, which is S3 payroll. If the client is using GHR payroll, then the employee's deduction will be automatically created in GHR payroll. If client is using S3 HRM payroll, then a CSV file is created and an FTP must be set up to take this file over to S3 payroll that will then update the deductions via the PR 514 process. I can tell you when Symmetry first came out, this was not a process, and the clients actually had to go over to PR 13 in S3 and manually update the taxes over there. So this is a big enhancement for S3 clients. Next, Nikki. So this is the upcoming configuration that I was referring to that they just announced on Wednesday, that basically it will be using the ION API in order to do this for multi-tenant clients. For single tenant clients, it will still use the Talent Science post-back receiver to receive that information back from Symmetry. Next, Nikki. So this is just an example of the product announcement from N4 as of 4/7, and what, it basically says it's now possible to integrate the third-party tax form solutions, Symmetry payroll forms. And then I did include the links that for multi-tenant. So if you are a multi-tenant client and you currently have Talent Science as your post-back receiver, you will need to change that to ION API. Now, if you are a single tenant, you will still remain on the Talent Science. So there is nothing that you would need to do at this time, but you still need to go in and look at the configuration that they do have the documentation on and make sure that everything still looks the same. Next, Nikki. Some of the things that are not supported that you would still need to do manually in the system because Symmetry does not update the system is clearing the tax exempt field. So if you have somebody that was previously a tax exempt employee and then they decide they're no longer going to be tax exempt, you would need to go in and clear that out. So that is a manual thing that you would need to do. Clearing the employee type field, if somebody was a military spouse, you would need to do that also. That is not something that Symmetry does. And then clearing the military spouse tax exempt state, you would need to clear that out manually also. Along with the non-resident resident state, the allocation apportionment of services, the 2 earner %, and then the foreign earned income eligible for exclusions. And then any exempt from withholding for startup of New York programs, and that only applies to New York for the new opt-out of paid family leave deduction that they have, that I think just came out in 2020, if I'm not mistaken. Nikki, you probably know that because you're there at a client in New York. So
yes, 2020.
2020. See, I haven't lost my mind yet. So On the state tax form, so this is what an employer candidate is presented. They can go in, so based on their live and work state, they will be presented with, and in this case, we did where Symmetry was actually creating the federal tax form for them. Now, you can actually have two ways to do this. You can either have the federal form that N4 supplies, and you can have a task that will actually be created by you for the W-4, or you can have Symmetry have one task, which seems to be a little more seamless. And I think, Jana, you can probably speak to this because at your client, that's the way that they went, correct?
Correct. And part of the reason was one of the two main states they had employees at basically use whatever deductions you claim on your federal form to populate the state form. So it made more sense for them to have Symmetry with the federal form first, and then whatever you put on that got pulled forward into the state form as kind of a starter point that you could review and update if you wanted to.
Yeah, great. So once this is presented to the employee or to the candidate, then they would select which one that they want to actually fill out. So we're going to look at the federal one. So Nikki, can you show the next slide? So they are actually presented a wizard. So this wizard takes them through the federal form, the federal W-4 form, and they just basically answer the questions. As they answer the questions, depending on how they answer it, different forms pop up. So if they said yes to this, then one form would pop up, you know, based off of that answer. If they say no, another form pops up based off of that answer. So if you want to go to the next one, and these are just slides of what it shows. So it kind of shows them the federal W-4 form for 2021. And then it goes through and, you know, they just keep going next, you know, and answering the questions. And then next. And then next. And as you can see with the new regulations that came out, all of these things are within the new wizard, you know, unlike previous, you know, where, you know, they would have a form that they would need to fill out and have like 5 pages and so forth. Well, now this is all, you know, online, and basically will have an electronic signature once they complete this. Okay, go ahead, Nikki. So they can actually go in and they can see, you know, if I'm a, you know, head of household, filing married separately, what my taxes would be and all of that and so forth. So, and the tax, child tax credits, anything like that, doing dependent. Okay. Now, if you answer yes on this form, then this form is presented in this next form. So if you go to that form, then, you know, you basically get another form. So the final form is where they go in and they submit. And as you see, under penalties of perjury, I declare that this certificate, to the best of my knowledge and behalf, is true. And so they do need to select that. And they do need to enter the last 4 digits of their Social Security number, because along with that and their employee name, that becomes their electronic signature. So once they do that, they would submit the form, and they can go in and they can actually do a print for the PDF. So if they wanted to print this out for themselves, they can actually do that. So this is kind of just showing you the form that, you know, gets printed out. And we, of course, had to black out the employee's name because we used an actual employee's name to get that. Okay. That's kind of Symmetry. Now, there are some things when you do set up the talent science. We have not set up the ION API yet because, of course, that, you know, has just came out as of Wednesday. But as far as talent science, there are some things on the security side that will need to be set up. So you will need to get your security folks involved in that, but there's a whole document that N4 puts out on how to set that post-back receiver up for Symmetry. Any questions or anything? Nikki?
No, there hasn't been anything in the chat.
Liz, I think I just want to clarify. I think there was a question back on the slide where you were showing the deduction setup and linking the Symmetry forms to the tax authorities. And I think I heard somebody ask, did we do that? So the setup that Liz showed you at the beginning is for GHR payroll being in place. If you are sending everything back to S3, you don't have to set up those tax authorities in GHR. The data will just go back from GHR to S3 and link into whatever tax authorities you have set up there.
That's a good point. Thanks,
Yeah.
Jana.
Yes.
I actually meant to say that and I forgot. So I'm
Yep.
glad you're on the call.
No worries.
Keeping me good here.
Yeah, no, it was just part of the conversation we had the other day. And then the
Exactly.
other thing that I wanted to just caution those of you on this call, because I had a unpleasant experience, is when you go to put in your tickets with Infor to set up the talent science instance, you actually have to put in 2 tickets, one for your test environment and one for your production environment. And you want to get both environments set up, because if you don't, once you go live and you try to do some more testing, it will actually write any changes you make to that employee, whether it's yourself or another, in production. And those changes will flow through to your production payroll. So just know that Infor doesn't automatically give you both environments. When you put a ticket in, you have to put in 1 ticket for test and 1 for production.
Lessons learned, right?
Yes. Yeah. Definitely.
There is a question, and it's, does the full social security number display when the employee prints out their W-2?
No,
Sorry, W-4.
just the last 4 digits. And I wanted to say too here, this is Infor's address here. So we did have an actual employee name for this screenshot, but we had moved them to Infor's address in New York City because we were testing the New York State form. And then you see the last 4 digits of the SOS number are blocked out there.
Thank you. That is all in the chat.
And you are correct, Jana. I think I had mentioned that, whatever environments that you have, you need to set up talent science or ION now in each one of those environments. So if you have 3 environments, then you need to do it in all 3. So
Definitely. I will say, if anybody on the call today is considering this, as you saw when Liz went through those screenshots of the wizard, it's a really nice product. People that have used it really compliment the ease of use and the wizard style format that guides them through each step. The New York State form is particularly complicated. I think we had about 30 screenshots from that one because of all the iterations. And again, in that instance, it just very nicely took the candidate or the employee through each part, and always had references out to the form itself. So a little bit of work to set it up, but really nice product for your new hires and current employees to interact with.
And I actually chose not to put the New York one in there because it was 30 screenshots when she sent it to me. So I apologize. I probably should have picked another state, but
no, it's fine. Yeah.
Anyone else out there have any questions?
Okay, if there's no more questions, I think we are complete with the session for the day. That was a really good session. Thanks to the Bales team for presenting, and thanks to all of you who attended for joining us today. If you enjoyed today's webinars, we hope you'll consider attending next week at scheduled events. We're presenting the following topics: GHR benefits overview and creating and scheduling reoccurring jobs. If you're interested, please go to our website to register, or you could send an email to brian.waters@balesllc.com. And as a closing thought, we wanted to remind everybody that we have an offering called Coffee with Consultants. If you have any questions about what you saw in today's session, or any questions related to anything about your Infor system, please reach out to us via our website, and we'll connect you with a consultant who will spend a half an hour with you at no charge over coffee, tea, or whatever your preferred beverage is, to review your question, answer your question, and offer you insights on use of the Infor system. Thank you again and have a great day.
Thank you all.
Thank you.